You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. Bitcoin, Ether, Solana, Doge, and more. Cryptocurrencies and digital assets are taking the financial world by storm. This exploding market provides everything a savvy trader needs: volatility, volume, and liquidity, provided you know how to find it. That's where we come in. Welcome to the Crypto Rundown. Each week, we'll break down the latest trading activity, trends, and developments throughout the world's leading crypto derivatives markets. If it's moving the crypto markets, then you'll find it on the Crypto Rundown. The Crypto Rundown is brought to you by Amber Data. If you're entering the digital asset class, you'll need access to granular on-chain and market data from multiple venues to power research, trading, risk management, and compliance. Amber Data delivers comprehensive data and insights into blockchain networks, crypto markets, and decentralized finance, empowering financial institutions to apply traditional finance methods to digital assets. Amber Data eliminates the infrastructure setup, integration challenges, and maintenance headaches to access digital asset data, reducing cost and time to market to enter the digital asset class. Learn more and download their digital asset data guide at www.amberdata.io. Now it's time to dive into the exploding world of crypto derivatives. It's time for the Crypto Rundown.
All right, everybody. It's Monday. It is time to roll out the Crypto Rundown, see what's going on in the world of crypto derivatives and indeed beyond. My name, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com. Hope you're having a good start to your trading week. Remember, if you're just listening to the Crypto Rundown, make sure wherever you're getting this, you upgrade to the full network. That'll get you nearly a dozen shows coming at you where we carve up the world of options and derivatives in all sorts of fun ways. Unusual activity, volatility, obviously crypto, futures, options. Now, futures as well, the newest edition. The Futures Rundown on Wednesday, the latest addition to the network. Folks are loving it. If you enjoy a little bit of crypto futures, then by all means, check out that show. It does tend to make it onto the list every now and then over there as well. So lots of fun stuff. And of course, if you want to go above and beyond the on-demand side and go on to the pro side, theoptionsinsider.com/pro. You're going to get 2 additional shows there, Options Oddities, where we break down a lot of unusual activity, as well as, of course, awesome pro Q&As. A lot of fun stuff to be had over there, as well as giveaways, live streams. We're almost time. It's almost time. Halloween's almost upon us. Almost time to give away the October Pro Trading Crate. Should be a fun time out there as we see who's joining us this week when we roll out the Crypto Hot Seat.
Forget about cold storage. It's time to turn up the heat on thought leaders from the world of cryptocurrencies and digital assets. It's time to take their place on the Crypto Hot Seat.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Crypto Hot Seat, the portion of the program where we welcome on guests from throughout the world of crypto derivatives and indeed beyond, and proceed to pick their brains for the benefit of you, the listener. And next up in the old hot seat, we have Michael Venuto, the Chief Investment Officer at Tidal Financial Group. Mike, welcome to the Crypto Rundown program.
Mark, excited to be here. Thank you.
And Mike, as we are wont to do with all of our first-timers here on the network, why don't you go ahead and give our audience a bit of an overview of your background in the world of crypto and finance, as well as what it is you folks do over there at Tidal Financial Group.
Okay. So My name is Mike Venuto. I'm the co-founder and CIO at Tidal Financial Group. We are an ETF platform. We help people launch, grow, and operate ETFs. If you want to launch an ETF, we're the people you call first. The reason that I get asked to talk about crypto is one of the first ETFs we ever launched was Block, BLOK. It's the largest blockchain ETF. Our platform is also behind a number of option income ETFs that are focused on various things in the crypto space. MSTY, which is an options income on MicroStrategy, Coney, CONY on Coinbase. We're also behind Defiance's ETFs that are leveraged versions of MicroStrategy. So we touch a lot of the TradFi components where the crypto markets meet traditional derivatives and options and things like that.
Well, speaking of that intersection, let's start there because you mentioned the growth of options-oriented ETFs. That has been one of the leading growth stories and one of the leading stories in general in the world of options over the last couple of years in particular. Whenever I go to a big industry conference or an event like the Options Industry Conference, or I was at the Securities Traders Association National Conference a few weeks ago as well, and anytime the options world gathers together, that is one of the leading stories, the incredible growth in these options-oriented, aka, defined outcome, call them what you will, type ETFs out there, and how much volume they are bringing to the options market as a result. We've been saying since the pandemic, when is this options growth going to taper off? And it hasn't. It's just accelerated in a large part due to these options-oriented ETFs. What are your thoughts? You've been in the ETF game for a while. I'll give you a quick anecdote, Mike, before you even answer that. I went down to the big ETF summit, that big ETF conference. I forgot what it's called, down in Fort Lauderdale. I want to say 4 or 5 years ago. We were tiptoeing into the world of ETF options at the time. We were thinking about launching a show based around ETF options. And I went down there. I spoke to every major issuer and everyone else. It's a huge expo hall, huge show floor, booths for days. I talked to all of them. And I went up to them. I said, hey, you have a ETF that does a decent amount of options volume. A, were you aware of that? And B, do you have anyone on staff who could talk cogently about it or knew anything about it that could come on and talk on the show? And the answer was almost uniformly no, Mike. They had no idea. They didn't seem to know or care about anything about the options side of it. It seems like that narrative has shifted a little bit in the last couple of years. All of a sudden, everyone's obsessed with options on ETFs. So walk us through that from your perspective. How has the worm turned so markedly in the ETF space with options?
Yeah, it's completely changed in the last 3 or 4 years. And it's strange that it changed because unlike in crypto, where we can't get any regulation that makes any sense or any guidance, in the ETF space, over the last 3 or 4 years, there were 2 rule changes that really opened the door for the ability to do active single security derivative-based stuff. Up until I don't want to put people to sleep, but it's called 18F4 is the derivatives rule. And that basically allowed the use of derivatives in ETFs in ways that had never even been thought of before. And since we got good regulation, right, which is a surprise, that allows us to do these things, we start innovating with our partners, right? So we have clients like Jay Pescatelli at Zega Financial who comes to us and says, I want to do this. And now we start to figure out how it can be done. And that's how you end up with something, that can do a buy right on MicroStrategy and yield over 100%, right? That was not doable when we had a lack of clarity in the regulation. It's funny because I do see that intersection of finally today that they're giving us clarity in TradFi. I'm very hopeful that they start to give us some more clarity in the crypto space so that we can trade more directly with these options and derivatives in that space. We actually had one fund where we did what's called exchange for physical. We were buying futures on Bitcoin and then using the CME fully regulated market to exchange those futures for physical Bitcoin. So there are some things out there. Funny enough, Gary Gensler is the one who wrote the rules for exchange for physical. So you would think I would have gotten a lot more support on that one. So
I can only imagine if I walked into that ETF conference about 5 years ago and I started talking about buy right ETFs, the people's eyes would have glazed over even more than they already did. So it does show you how much the worm has turned out there just in the last couple of years. But you're right. Looking at the crypto space in particular, it's been equally, I would say, fascinating and frustrating out there to see what's going on the ETF front. First off, that takes forever to get the ETFs on Bitcoin approved. We finally got them approved back in January of this year. And then obviously from our perspective, we're interested in the options. So a lot of our listeners, a lot of our audience, we're very excited. Okay, here we go. Options are coming. They'll be in our trading accounts any day now, maybe a couple of weeks at the outset. And then, of course, weeks go by, months go by. We didn't get the final approval from the SEC on the options on the Bitcoin ETFs that they had already approved until about a few weeks ago. So it's been just I think a frustrating process for a lot of our listeners. It's probably more frustrating for you because you're in it day to day, Mike. Walk our listeners through that a little bit. Why did it take us forever to get the original ETFs approved? And then what the heck was the holdup on the options that took nearly another year?
Yeah, so the original ETFs, I've never seen the process. I've helped launch close to 500 ETFs, right? I was at Global X Funds at one point doing it there. And then on our own platform, Tidal today has $22 billion and 170 ETFs that we're servicing, right? So been involved in so many launches. The ETFs for Bitcoin, for spot Bitcoin, was the craziest experience I've ever seen. All the rules were thrown out the window, and there was like a whole effort to bring everybody out at the same time. It was very, very strange. I think that if they could have stopped it, they would have. I think the lawsuit that they lost against Grayscale and the fact that BlackRock was in there, it just was something they capitulated to. And, they still made it hard. There's certain things that these ETFs should be able to do that they're not able to do yet. And it all comes down to they want to control the money. It's so funny. Everything is on chain and you can see it, but they wanted even more disclosure. And they were using that excuse with the options, right? So with the options, they're saying we can't see through who's going to own it and this and that. It'll break down over time and there'll be the options. On normal ETFs, they could not really stop this, but all these Bitcoin ETFs are under what's called 33 Act law, which is trust and commodity-based pools. So they've got this kind of loophole to really slow down the options. It's really frustrating to investors, though, right? So we have an ETF on our platform through the YieldMax crew, YBIT, which YBIT, it's selling covered calls on BITO right now. It has the ability to sell covered calls on the other 10 ETFs that are physical, right? And that would be better for the end investor because the options on BITO include the dividend that they're paying from the futures. So it's screwing up the pricing. And we know it's going to be a better product the second they approve these options, but we have to wait. It is very frustrating.
Yes, we had guests on here not that long ago saying they were approved to be able to do levered options on the iShares product, and yet the actual options themselves were still not approved. So yeah, it's a weird time, to say the least, out there. I'm glad it's not just me, Mike. I'm glad it's you. You've been around for 500 launches, and it's not just mystifying to me. I'm glad it's mystifying to you as well, Mike.
Yeah. So what you're saying about the leverage on Bitcoin is being done using swaps. So they're pushing it off of clear, transparent markets and into counterparty risk with banks. They just need to approve these things so that traditional finance can do this the right way as opposed to trying to find ways around it.
Now, of course, I say the options have been approved, but we're closing in on a month since then. We still obviously don't have those options in our trading accounts. I've heard varying things about when people think we're even going to see them, if it'll even be this year, Mike. Do you have any insight into that process? When do you think people will actually be able to trade the options on the ETFs that have already been approved and the options that have already been approved, but we still can't trade anything?
So the cynic in me wants this answer with whenever BlackRock asked them to do it. But I don't really know, right? So what we've heard is two things. One, NASDAQ got approval, and two, New York Stock Exchange got approval. Strangely, the CBOE is not mentioned, and they're like the options player. But that's just one step, right? There's still other pieces that have to get approved through other regulatory agencies, and I just don't think there's political will to get it done. I think it's going to depend on the positioning of the administration that's next, whether it's coming out with a war on crypto or not, right? I don't think that the decisions made by the SEC over the last couple of years were unpolitical when it comes to this particular issue. Bitcoin, crypto, DeFi scares them.
Well, you mentioned the political will. There's about to be a big political sea change coming up in the next, 8 days. We're closing in on the big day here. There's been, I think, some obvious tonal shifts in different camps. One camp's clearly trying to position themselves as the quote-unquote pro-crypto, or at least crypto-tolerant camp. The other, not as much. What are your thoughts? You kind of just mentioned you don't think the SEC is acting in a vacuum. You think they're maybe getting this from higher up, that there's a bit of an anti-crypto bias out there. What are you expecting coming down in the next, 8 days, obviously? And then also, if we do see a change of regime, what do you think happens on the crypto front? Is it Wild West? Is everything going to be approved? What are we looking at?
I think that, let me start with, regardless of who gets elected, Bitcoin, we'll just separate Bitcoin out, is going to do spectacular because both have inflationary policies, right? Everybody wants to print money. This is the least fiscally responsible on either side that I've ever seen, right? Like, it's just, let's print, let's devalue, or, print our way out of debt. So I'm not worried about Bitcoin. Now we go to the rest of the industry, the blockchain industry and the decentralized finance industries and things like that. I think that it's pretty clear from the messaging that's likely to do much better in a Trump administration. But we haven't really heard Harris say anything, which, is pretty scary if you're in that industry because you're not getting any messaging. All that said, the truth of what these tools do, this concepts of tokenization, of decentralized finance, it's a threat to the system. So either way, it eventually is going to scare whoever's in charge, because you're making it almost like you don't need custodians and you don't need the exchanges the way they operate today, and you're not able to surveil the way, sovereignty and freedom comes from these things, and that's going to scare anybody who's in power.
Yeah, should be an interesting time. The clock is ticking, Mike. We will be doing a live stream that day, listeners, so if you want to come join us, a live election night live stream. Maybe, Mike, if you want to dive in and give the crypto perspective, feel free. We'll be going for a while, I think. Should be a lot of fun insights and a lot of madness if our previous election night live streams are any indication, listeners. You never know what's going to happen. All I know is I'll have no voice by the end of it all. But, another thing that's been interesting to watch, and probably for a lot of people also deeply frustrating, is the whole situation with XRP. I know when we were first spinning up this show and thinking about adding a crypto show to the network, it was right after the big launch of the futures in the options and derivatives world. So we saw CME and SIBO getting into the crypto game really for the first time back in 2017. We launched this show 6 months or so later in early 2018. And even then, everyone was very excited about XRP. Everyone was already moving on from your Bitcoins. They were excited about ETH, but XRP was the hot thing. New platforms were coming online. Kraken, that pretty much was a place you could get XRP, so everyone was flocking over to Kraken, at least here in the U.S., to trade their XRP. It was a hot thing. We all know what happened to it. The SEC kind of pumped the brakes, and it's been lost in this, I think you could charitably call it a regulatory limbo pretty much ever since, vacillating around 55 cents, seemingly forever, with no end in sight. Let's start there from your perspective, Mike. Where do we stand right now? We've heard rumors many times recently, this is it. The SEC, they're finally going to have some sort of resolution in this case. We see XRP pop a little bit. It comes right back down. So let's start there. Where do we stand on this whole thing? Is it a security? Is it not? When are we finally going to see some outcome to this?
Yeah, I think the XRP has been very, very difficult for them to get their heads wrapped around, because there is people involved that they can point to and say, hey, you're founders, you have stake, you have this. And And it makes it very, very difficult for them to pass the Howey test, that they like to call it, right? This security or not a security. Ironically, it seems like they've gotten there on Ether, and with proof of stake, Ether seems more like a security than ever before to me. So I don't know that it's moving any quicker, right? This particular token or blockchain, it's got all the aspects that Gensler hates, right? I think the genius of Nakamoto to disappear and be anonymous, it makes it a lot more easy for people to understand, or for regulators to accept Bitcoin, because they don't feel like there's a guy out there or a girl out there that they can come in and control their money, right? The regulators think of the money as theirs. The government thinks of the money as theirs. It's not ours. So I don't think we're going to see an XRP or a Ripple resolution anytime soon. It's not going to stop people from filing for products for it. It's not going to stop people from trying to build index products that have exposure to it. But the current regime at the SEC does not seem to like that particular token or blockchain, trying to skirt the difference on the wording.
Yeah, it does seem to be suffering a lot of the slings and arrows of the SEC right now. So do you have several ETFs over there at Tidal? People are coming to you right now and trying to spin up XRP ETFs, even with everything going on out there?
We have people talking to us every day about new ETF ideas. I mean, every day it's something new. There's lots of cool things in the hopper in the world of crypto, whether it's derivatives of crypto stocks, or, we have, last week we launched for a client of ours, BTGD, which is 100% long gold, 100% long Bitcoin in one ETF, right? Just, you're worried about debasement of currency. For $1, you get $1 of gold and $1 of Bitcoin. So it's a form of leverage, but all in one ETF, right? So things like that. We've been working on one for a year and a half to have Bitcoin and carbon futures. I'm not a big believer in the green part of it, but I understand why some people would want that component. So we're trying to build an institutional product in that space. Seeing a lot of more people coming to us with index-like ideas, combining Bitcoin, ETH, and then going down to the next 10. So I haven't had anyone ask us to file for just one other token. I think there are a lot of people who come to us are more entrepreneurial, and they're very worried about launching something that BlackRock's just going to copy. So they try and come to us with ideas that are derivations or add something, or in the no Vanguard, no BlackRock zone, things that they won't do.
Well, I was about to ask you, Mike, what's the latest coming down the pike from you folks over there at Tidal? But you kind of just gave it to us. You sound like you have quite a few interesting ETFs in the offing that we can look forward to, Mike. So I'm sure our listeners are intrigued. And in the meantime, if they want to know more about what you and the team are cooking up over there at Tidal, where should they go? What should they do, Mike?
Yeah, so the easiest website is TidalFG.com, Tidal Financial Group. We have lots of content on there. There's a little button when you get to that website that says build me an ETF. If you put in your information, we'll come back to you with a whole discussion on how it can be done. There's lots of great articles in there about how to launch ETFs, and all of the 170 plus ETFs that we helped launch and operate and grow for our clients are all listed there. So that's the best place to find us. I'm all over Twitter as well, but it's pretty easy to find me there.
I like that. Build your own ETF, but I might go hit that after the show. Just have some fun. I have a lot of ideas cooking around here, Mike. Maybe we can make something happen. In the meantime, there, listeners, check it out. Check it out for yourselves. TidalFinancialGroup.com, the place to go to learn more. Click on that build your own ETF button. Maybe you have the next great idea lurking around. And Mike, we appreciate you taking some time to join us today to share some insights on the ETF space, and we'll have to bring you back on to see how all these various crypto ETFs, who knows, maybe by the next time, Mike will actually be able to trade an option on some of these Bitcoin ETFs.
You don't hold your breath.
Yeah, I was about to say I'm not going to hold my breath, but hopefully we'll have to have you on maybe before then. But I appreciate it, Mike, and we'll make sure to keep an eye on all these initiatives and hopefully all these new products coming soon.
Wonderful.
All right, listeners, now it's time for us to keep on rolling and head on into the Bitcoin breakdown.
It's time to explore the latest trending activity, trends, and developments across the world's leading crypto market. It's time for the Bitcoin Breakdown.
All right, listeners, time to do a little bit of breaking down of the old BTC and where we're hanging out this week as compared to last week. A little bit north, Bitcoin drifting up as we're heading into the election. So a little bit of election tumult appears to be good right now for the old BTC. At the end of the day, more buyers than sellers. 68,858 is where we were coming into the start of the show. Last week on our show, 67,156. So up almost exactly 1,700 handle, 1,702 to be precise since our last show. The high was pretty much what we hit coming into the start of our show today, that 858 level. The low was last Friday. We broke 67K in the wrong direction, 66,625. So a little over 2,000, about 2,225 handle range on the week, which all things considered for Bitcoin isn't the largest week. But you know what? We have some events in the offing, and they are managing to keep vol at the very least firm where it is right now. You see that reflected in the Bitcoin vol numbers. Remember, you can check these for yourselves and a whole bunch more over there at Amber Data, amberdata.io, the place to go to kick the tires and light the fires. You'd see if you ran those numbers, listeners, the weekly vol out there getting a little bit frothier right now. 44.6 on the show last week, up exactly 10 points this week, 54.6 coming into the start of our show today. So obviously things getting a little bit juicier. A number of reasons obviously conspiring for that. First off, of course, we are heading into a big event next week, so things are going to get a little bit frothier heading into that, of course. Also a little bit higher. You move up the skew. Calls tend to be bid versus the puts in Bitcoin. That's just the way the product works. So you're going to see a little bit of vol tick up there as well. But 10 points, nothing to sneeze at, especially in the near dated vol. Going a little bit farther out, the increases are a little bit more modest, but that's what you expect. 30-day vol, a little bit cooler, saner heads out there. The 30-day vol a week ago, 54.1, coming in to start the show today, 55.7, up 1.6 points on the week, a little bit firmer. We'll see how that moves going into the end of the week. And of course, the show next week should certainly be a doozy. That'll be pretty much election eve here in the U.S., listeners. Wonder what kind of vol levels we'll be looking at there. In fact, that is our question of the week for this week. We'll get to that in a little bit. Let's go out to the 6-month vol, actually taking a bit of a respite. Just a quiet calm out there on the 6-month. Maybe a little calm before the storm on the 6-month vol. 56.5 last week, 54.5 this week. So still frothy, but taking a little bit off the top. Let's go out to the skew. It has swung a little bit, especially on the weekly side. We were looking a little bit bearish this time a week ago, negative 2.5. This week, swung pretty much completely in the other direction, positive 2.7. Remember, that is effectively the vol of the 25 delta put versus the 25 delta call. In most products, especially a lot of the equities you trade, listeners, the puts are going to be trading at a higher vol level. In the crypto space, it tends to be the other way around quite a bit out there. Let's go out to the 30-day skew, moving exactly a point. A lot of interesting unit movements this week. 30-day skew, 4.35 a week ago, coming in 3.35 this week. So taking a point off the top, still modestly biased to the upside. And then going out 6 months, same trend we saw earlier, positive 5.7 a week ago, 4.25 this week. So coming in nearly a 1.5. Let's go out to some of the products you folks can trade out there right now and trade options on while we're all waiting for the iBits and everything else of the world to kind of get their act together. Let's go out to Bitto first. 1986 to kick off the show. An excellent year. Also a good level for Bitto, up 0.86. We're at a 19 even on the show this time a week ago. The ADV, 131,000. So that is literally unchanged from where we were this time a week ago. As for the volume today, about 81,000 with about half an hour left to go in the sessions. It doesn't seem like we're going to hit it. 50,000 contracts in the last 30 minutes. Seems like a bit of a bridge too far. Vol-wise, 30-day vol, 55 a week ago. Actually, 55 this week, down 4 points from where we were a week ago. We were at a 59. In terms of size positions, it's all the same Jan long-term stuff that we're seeing out there. Let's go out to our old pal, BitX. See if anything's lighting it up out there. 32.9, up 1.8 points from where it was this time a week ago. And you know what? BitX lighting it up just pretty much since the start of our show almost. It was at about 25,000 contracts on the tape coming into the start of the show. 46,000 right now, so something has gone up very recently. See if we can go suss that out. By the way, the ADV, 27,000 contracts a day. That's up 2,000 from this time last week. So getting, you know what, it's going XDiv. That's what's happening. We saw this with BitO before as well. When they go XDiv, that's where all this pays. So that makes sense why there's suddenly looking for a 63-cent a share dividend tomorrow. So when that happens, listeners, you're going to see a lot of paper coming in to try to capture that dividend. And we are seeing that Jan 15s. Interesting they go so far out for usually see nearer dated plays to capture the dividends like these. Yeah, these are the NOV expiring this week, 25 half. So slightly in the money calls going out this week. That makes more sense. 2,100 of those, a whole bunch of those. So it's a big div capture strip going on out here, which would make sense. The volume doesn't normally almost double in a half an hour going into the close, unless something strange is afoot, and that's pretty much the case. The big dog position in BitX options, still those Jan 2026 70 puts. Number two, a little bit closer to home, we have 6,200 of the NOV 37 calls, which looking a little bit better this week than they were this time last week, closing in on $34 out there right now. Actually, yeah, we've seen a nice little run in BitX since the start of the show as well. We were at 32.90 kick off the show. It's at 33 3/4 right now, so up quite a bit from where we were this time last week. Oh, interesting. That's up another, puts it up about 260 now from where it was this time a week ago. So, wow. Nice little move for BitX and some commensurate volume coming into the end of the session. Let's see if we can find anything similarly action-packed in Mara. You know, Mara was looking pretty good. It was at 18 even a week ago. It was at 18.70 coming into the start of our show. Puts it up 70 cents. It's now ticked up a little more since the start of our show. It's up to about 18.95. It obviously puts it up nearly a buck. 95 cents on the day. The ADV also looking firm again. It's 269,000 contracts, which is pretty respectable, all things considered. Today, though, another banger day out there in Maryland. 346,000 contracts on the tape out there in Mara. By the way, you might be asking, what is the 30-day vol out here in Mara? It's a 106, down 1 point from this time a week ago. But I want to go back and see what folks are up to out here today. That's putting up all these numbers. Mara right around $19, listeners. 29, almost 30,000 of the 20 calls expiring this week, followed by 25,000 of the 19 calls going up this week. Doesn't look like it went up as a spread. It's just straight up. The 20s went up for 19 cents. So if you want to take a little bit of swing for the upside fences, there was 19 cents when the stock was $17.70. It has moved $1.25 since then. So you're not going to get them for 19 cents anymore, listeners. The 20 halves trading more recently for 23 cents. That sounds more like it. So yeah, you have to go a little bit farther out if you want to get that price level now, listeners. The 21's going up for 15 cents right around this time. So if you want to take your swing for the fences on some upside, there you go, listeners. Some folks doing clearly that. If that's not if that's not far enough out there for you, how about the D's 32s trading 1,000 times today for 64 cents? I've been saying, Mara seems like it's been range bound 15 to roughly 30 throughout the year. 32 would certainly be on the outside of that range. I don't see any obvious spreads or legs against it. Now, worth noting, there is some OI on that strike, so we don't know for sure if it's closing. It could be closing those 32s, but that's certainly an interesting strike out there. Listen, let's just look really quickly. There we go. These 32s, like they started trading them. There's 39,000 contracts open on the strike first. They started trading them, 17,000 of them back in August 27th, when Mara was 17.75. They traded for $1.06, and then 15,000 October 2nd for 36 cents. So I guess if you liked them at $1.06, you had to love them at 36 cents. So kind of, if you bought roughly half for $1 and roughly half for 36 cents, then you did average down. You're getting closer to a little bit of break even. Not quite there yet, but pretty close. So doesn't look like they're letting any go, though. Looks like someone might be buying more today. So there you go, listeners. All kinds of crazy paper. Speaking of crazy paper, let's go explore the altcoin universe.
It's time to move beyond Bitcoin and find out what's moving the rest of the crypto marketplace. It's time to boldly venture into the altcoin universe.
All right, everybody, welcome to the altcoin universe. And you know what, listeners? This is usually where I tell you where the rising tide that is Bitcoin tends to lift all boats. But in reality, that's not the case. It actually costs you less to break into the top 10 in the altcoin universe this week than it did last week. Last week, it cost you about $13.25 billion to hit the number 10 spot. This week, only 12.6. So Bitcoin up, but less money to break into the top 10 this week, which is interesting. That gets us to our old pal Toncoin. Still holding down the number 10 spot, even if it is for less market cap. Number 9, still got Tron glued. In fact, our bottom 3 are pretty much the same. Number 9 is Tron, 14.1 billion. Then everyone's favorite, I know you love it out there, listeners, it's Doge, getting a little bit frothier this week. 22.3 billion worth of market cap. Number 7 is XRP, still hanging out right around 51 cents, because of course it is. 29.1 billion worth of market cap. Number 6, USD coin, 34.6 billion. Number 5, it's Solana, 82.5 billion. Number 4, it's BNB, 86.4 billion. Number 3, it's Tether, because of course it is, 120.25 billion. Number 2, it's E, 302 billion. And the big dog, Bitcoin, 1.368 trillion worth of market cap. Let's get out to ETH, though, listeners. Looking a little bit lighter this week than it was last week. Again, rising tide, not lifting all boats out there. ETH last week, 26.62, coming in the start of the show this week, just a tick below the 2,500 level, 24.98 to be precise. The range for the week, the high today, 26.66, the low last Friday, 24.36, so 230 handle range on the week. Let's go out to the vol first. Weekly vol, 51 last week, 51.8 this week. It's not a huge evolution there. Pretty much the same across the board. 30-day vol, 60.5 last week, 60.9 right now. So ETH vol kind of treading water heading into the election. And the 6-month vol, 64.1 last week, 63.4. This week, skew-wise, a little bit of evolution. Looks like most of the folks have kind of taken a little bit of a respite this week. Weekly skew, I should say, positive 2.1 last week. This week, negative 0.5. So swinging slightly to the dark side. 30-day skew, positive 3 last week. This week, that's all gone. The skew is actually completely flat right now, so no bias in any direction in ETH going out a month. And going out 6 months, it was positive 4.4 a week ago. This week, a whopping positive 4.3. So not much evolution on the skew front at all this week in ETH. Let's keep running through the rest of the altcoin universe, listeners, and we'll get out of here for this week. First, let's go out to Solana. 175 is where it's trading right now. 165 is where it was a week ago, up nearly 10 handles. 9.75 really, to be precise. It was 165 and about a third on the show last week. XRP, 54.6 cents last week, 51.4 cents this week, so down a little over 3 cents. Once again, XRP can't hold any bid. Good old Doge, 14.1 cents last week, 15.2 cents this week. So all you Dogillionaires out there, getting a little bit closer out there, up a whopping penny. Litecoin, 70.87 cents last week, 69.83 this week, down a whopping $1.04. Cardano, 35.6 cents last week, 33.6 cents, down 2 cents. Polkadot, 4.35 last week, 4.06 this week, down 29 cents. And everybody's favorite, Shiba Inu, a million zeros, 1.834 last week. I was joking, maybe we're clawing somewhat closer to the hubcap of those Shiba Lambos. Well, forget about that. That hubcap's gone. Back down to a million zeros, 1.739. All right, listeners, that music means we're done for this week. Before we get out here really quickly, I just want to mention we did touch earlier on election vol. That is kind of our question of the week. So if you want to head on over to @options on the old Twitter machine, you can see our question of the week. Just went live earlier today. You know, you may have heard an election is looming. We did talk about a fun one last week, but our actual question of the week this week is about good old vol itself. We were kind of joking earlier on the show with our guest that, you know, will we see some change-ups this week or next week coming out of the election? And what will we see this week, of course, our final full trading week before the election itself. So we thought we'd ask you quite simply, anything can still happen. Surprises can still unfold Where do you think VIX is going to close at the end of the week on Friday, heading into the weekend before one of the bigger, impactful days of the season out there? We gave you 4 choices, 18 to 21, which is right where VIX was when we posted this. A little bit wider ranges would give you a little bit of a chance to sink your teeth into them. Lower, so below 18. Higher, 21 to 24. And even higher, north of 24. Right now, with the early voting coming in, again, it's like we have exit polls here. 31.8% say VIX is going to be right around here by the end of the week, 18 to 21. 27.3% say it's going to be north of 24, so feeling a little bit of optimism on the vol front there. 22.7% say below 18, and 18.2% say 21 to 24. It just ticked. It keeps ticking, listeners, so I can't keep up with all the ticking. Get on over there to @options and make your voice heard. We will reveal the results next week. You can, of course, look for yourself on Friday, see where VIX cash closes. And you, too, will know how VIX fared this week. Should be a banger next week. Looking forward to it. We'll see you then. Another episode of the Crypto Rundown. Stay safe out there, everybody.
The Crypto Rundown is brought to you by Amber Data. If you're entering the digital asset class, you'll need access to granular on-chain and market data from multiple venues to power research, trading, risk management, and compliance. Amber Data delivers comprehensive data and insights into blockchain networks, crypto markets, and decentralized finance, empowering financial institutions to apply traditional finance methods to digital assets. Amber Data eliminates the infrastructure setup, integration challenges, and maintenance headaches to access digital asset data, reducing cost and time to market to enter the digital asset class. Learn more and download their digital asset data guide at www.amberdata.io. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.